Welcome to St. Matthew's Digital Church. We are so glad that you stopped for a moment to tune in to what God might be having to say to you. Now, we would love to connect with you. So if you haven't yet downloaded our app, you can search for it in your favorite app store using the words St. Matthew Lutheran Church. It'll look something like this when you find it. Now, inside our app, this is how we connect together digitally. You can use our hello card, you can leave a prayer request, you can join a small group, some of which are even digital, and you can choose to digitally support the ministry here at St. Matthew. Our app is the hub for digital ministry, and it's a great way for you to stay connected and to let us know that you're joining us digitally each week. So as we worship together, may you open your heart, open your mind, and open your life to what God might have for you on a long road of faithfulness.
I don't wanna be afraid every time I face the waves. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna fear the storm just because I hear it roar. I don't wanna fear the storm. I don't wanna fear the storm. Peace be still, say the word and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. No, I'm not gonna be afraid, 'cause these waves are only waves. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not gonna fear the storm, 'cause you're greater than its roar. I'm not gonna fear the storm. No, I'm not gonna fear the storm. Peace be still, say the word and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. Peace over me. So let faith rise up, oh heart beating. Let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh heart beating. Let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh I believe. Let faith rise up in me. I'll sing it on. Let faith rise up, oh I believe. Let faith speak peace, peace over me.
We're continuing in our series. In fact, this is the last Sunday in our series in the book of Daniel. Now, we've gone through chapters 1 through 6, which are kind of narratives of the life of Daniel in Babylon. But from 7 to 12, remember we said the first week, 7 through 12 take us into this apocalyptic literature. And we'll say more about what that is during the sermon. But without further ado, this is Daniel chapter 7, the entire chapter. In the first year of the reign of King Belshazzar of Babylon, Daniel had a dream. What he saw as he slept in his bed terrified him. It was a real nightmare. Then he wrote out his dream. In my dream that night, I saw the four winds of heaven whipping up a great storm on the sea, and four huge animals, each different from the others, ascended out of the sea. First animal looked like a lion, but it had wings of an eagle. And while I watched, its wings were pulled off and then pulled erect so that it was standing on 2 feet like a man. Then a human heart was placed in it. Then I saw a second animal that looked like a bear, and it lurched from side to side, holding 3 ribs in its jaws. And I was told, attack, devour, fill your belly. Next, I saw another animal. This one looked like a panther. It had 4 bird-like wings on its back, and this animal had 4 heads, and it was made to rule. After that, a fourth animal appeared in my dream. This one was a grisly horror, hideous. It had huge iron teeth, and it crunched and swallowed its victims. Anything left over, it trampled into the ground. It was different from the other animals. This one was a real monster. It had 10 horns. And as I was staring at the horns and trying to figure out what they meant, another horn sprouted up, a little horn. 3 of the original horns were pulled out to make room for it. There were human eyes in this little horn and a big mouth speaking arrogantly. As I watched all this, thrones were set in place and the old one sat down. His robes were white as snow and his hair was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, its wheels blazing. A river of fire poured out over the throne. Thousands upon thousands served him. Tens of thousands attended to him. The courtroom was called to order and the books were opened. I kept watching. The little horn was speaking arrogantly. Then I watched the monster was killed and its body cremated in a roaring fire. The other animals lived for a limited time, but they didn't really do anything. They had no power to rule. And then my dream continued. I saw a human form, a son of man arriving in a whirl of clouds. He came to the old one and was presented to him. He was given power to rule all the glory of royalty. Everyone, race, color, and creed served him. His rule would be forever, never ending. His kingly rule would never be replaced. But as for me, Daniel, I was disturbed. All these dreams and visions, they had agitated me. So I went up to one of those standing by and I asked him the meaning of all this. And he told me, interpreting the dream for me. These 4 huge animals, he said, mean that the 4 kingdoms will appear on earth, but eventually the holy people of the high God will be given the kingdom and have it ever after. Yes, forever and ever. But I wanted to know more, and I was curious about the 4th animal, the one that was so different from the others, the hideous monster with iron teeth and bronze claws and gulping down what it ripped to pieces and trampled the leftovers into the dirt. And I wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head and the other horn that sprouted up while the 3 original horns were removed. This new horn had eyes and a big mouth and spoke arrogantly and dominated the other horns. I watched as this horn was making war on God's holy people and getting the best of them. But then the old one intervened and decided things in favor of the people of the high God. In the end, God's holy people took over the kingdom. The bystander continued telling me this, the 4th animal in the 4th kingdom that will appear on earth, it will be different from the first 3 kingdoms. A monster kingdom that will chew up everyone in sight and spit them out. And the 10 horns are 10 kings, one after another, that will come from this kingdom. But then another king will arrive, and he will be different from earlier kings. He will begin by toppling 3 kings. Then he will blaspheme the high God and persecute the followers of the high God and try to get rid of the sacred worship and moral practice. God's holy people will be persecuted by him for a time, 2 times, half a time. But when the court comes to order, the horn will be stripped of its power and totally destroyed, and then the royal rule and authority and the glory of all the kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to all the people of the high God. Their rule will last forever. All other rulers will serve and obey them, and there it ended. I, Daniel, was in shock. I was like a man who had seen a ghost, but I kept it all to myself. Here ends the reading of the word. Daniel chapter 7 through 12 shifts from how we've seen Daniel in the first 6 chapters. As we've seen, the first 6 chapters take on a historical kind of narrative frame, but it shifts in Daniel chapter 7 to what we call apocalyptic literature, where we meet these 4 great beasts resembling a winged lion, a tusked bear, a 4-headed leopard, and a 10-horned, iron-toothed monster. No wonder Daniel says in chapter 7, "My spirit was troubled within me, and the visions of my head terrified me." Who wouldn't react similarly? What are these creatures, and what are they doing in the Bible? Well, this is apocalyptic literature, of course. But then, what is that doing in the Bible? So if you compare biblical apocalyptic literature to graphic novels like the Sandman series by Neil Gaiman, and similar literary expressions of fantasy and science fiction, these books give writers and illustrators free rein to exercise their imagination, sometimes about worlds of demons and evildoers that resemble very much the depictions of beasts here in Daniel chapter 7, but actually point to rules and rulers and kingdoms and nations and cities. You might even understand more if we compare these beastly characters to the Death Eaters and the Dementors and the other kind of creepy characters in Harry Potter. See, the question of Daniel chapter 7, they're not about whether the stories are true or untrue. Just as Jesus used parables for teaching and truth-telling, which are, of course, technically fiction, the Bible can use fantastic images of apocalypse to proclaim God's ultimate victory over evil. And for Daniel, the coming demise of the Greek tyrant Antiochus Epiphanes. Remember, apocalypse simply means disclosure or a revelation of knowledge. So writers and graphic illustrators have an unlimited special effects budget to tell the stories that they see in their heads, and so does the book of Daniel. One could say calmly and rationally that the world is a bleak and dangerous place. Or one could make this point more fully and dramatically through this apocalyptic fantasy. This genre will more quickly trouble and terrify us as it did for Daniel, which is actually the whole point. But it's not the final point. The final point is that in the midst of this highly troubled and dangerous world, God is present. God is more powerful than all of the beasts, a God who loves and nourishes rather than hates and devours like we see in the people of the beast. It's in this God that we're given hope for meaning, life, and salvation forever and ever, as the text announces. For Daniel and the exiled people, the beast represented the powerful kingdoms of Babylon and Media and Persia and the Greek Empire of Alexander the Great, which had consecutively dominated and literally subjected Israel for some 5 centuries by the time that this book was actually written. So what are our devouring beasts? What holds us captive in our day? What will we do as Christians to face all of this? In verses 13 and 14, Daniel describes this figure that comes after the terrifying beasts, the vision of one like a human being. The Aramaic there actually says, a son of man. Now, this is the heart of the chapter, and we could almost stop with the mere arrival of this person and be comforted already to see a human figure coming with the clouds of heaven. It's itself a relief following all of these crazy monsters of Daniel's dream. Now, interpreters disagree about whether this figure is meant to be an angel or Israel or the Messiah or someone else, but the key, I think, is that it's a human. See, God deals with us and saves us even in the midst of beastly terrors through human means, in human form. Because of this, the New Testament is able to use this passage of Daniel to describe Jesus as the Son of Man coming in the clouds. But we don't need to wait until the end of time to possess the kingdom forever. The last line of "A Mighty Fortress is Our God" gets it right. The kingdom is ours forever, already because of the victory over all the beastly powers, including sin and death and the devil, won by God through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Catch this. You've already won. We've already won. We've won the battle over the beasts of our life. We've won the reality of what it means to engage in this world because Christ has already done the work. The victory is done. So now, we got to live like it. The kingdom, this world, the world to come, and all that is belongs to God and not to the beasts and the demons that we think have power over us. And a gracious God freely gives it to all of his children. On the 1st of November, we celebrate a thing called All Saints' Day. This is the day set aside sharing the victory of Christ with all the past and present and future believers who have been rescued from their own personal and cosmic beasts, brought by Jesus into the loving arms of a gracious God. Given the hope and strength of that safe home, we don't have to wait for the end of time to confront the beasts of this world, whether they are physical or personal or political or even mythical. See, the Son of Man who comes to face down the powers of the world in Daniel will be seen in the Gospels to be our Lord Jesus. But this title often applies to all of us. Sons of men, daughters of women, human persons, saved, set free by God to make a world of difference now in human form. So this is our challenge. This is what this apocalyptic message is speaking to each of us. We all have our beast. We all have the things that we're confronting in our world, and so do we as a corporate collective. But the victory's won. So what do we do now? How do we live as conquerors of the beasts?
I rest in you, O God. I am in your safekeeping. Body and soul held in peace. My heart cries out to you, my God. All that upsets me, you see. All that disturbs me, you understand. Only here in your presence am I fully known. I am wrapped in grace. I rest in you, O God. I am in your safekeeping. Body and soul held in peace. I try to relax, but anger rattles me. I try to relax, but my failings niggle at me. Be still. Be silent. Put your trust in the Lord. I rest in you, O God. I am in your safekeeping. Body and soul held In the stillness, the light of your face shines. My heart turns to thankfulness and is glad. I have more than enough. You, Lord, are more than enough. I lie down to sleep, safe and sound. I rest in you, O God. I am in your safekeeping. Body and soul held in peace. Be still and rest. You are held in peace.
At St. Matthew, we practice rhythms. Rhythm is just a way of falling more in love with God, more in love with our neighbor, and more in love with ourselves, as Christ calls us to in the Great Commandments. So the rhythm for this week is simple. Take a few moments and identify your beasts. What are the beasts that you feel are trying to overcome you in this world? What are the beasts that we as the church in America have? How are we the beasts as an American in this world? And then, as you write these down, take a moment and X out each one by one, claiming victory over the beasts of your life. And then close that time with a word of prayer, thanking God for the revelation that God has already won the victory for us, and then live like it. Go in peace and serve our world.
Thank you for joining us today. St. Matthew is a neighborhood church making a world of difference through people like you living out the message of hope, grace, and love each day. We invite you to connect with us digitally by downloading our new church app on the App Store or Google Play. Through the app, you can connect with the vision and mission of St. Matthew, find groups to connect with, be prayed for, and even give. We invite you to join our community of faith and to help us make a difference in the world.